You are listening to the Gate 7 International Podcast, a podcast connecting Olympiacos fans from Melbourne to Baltimore, from London to Piraeus. We are 4 Olympiacos fans from every corner of the world, bringing you news and interviews of the team you love in English. With new episodes twice a week, you'll never lose the latest updates and stories of the team you love. This is our team, our city, and our land. Man Aoniro Trello. You're listening to the Gate 7 International Podcast.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Gate 7 International Podcast. Going duos today. Just Lambro and I, no Costa, no Peter. But they'll be joining us most likely tomorrow for the pre-match. And, of course, our special guest today, Coach Philipp Wank from the Olympiacos DC Academy, Technical Director and Head Coach of the UPSL team. Philipp, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. Kalispera from Washington. Kalimera is morning, right? Kalispera is evening?
Kalispera is evening, right.
We're
exactly.
More going in that direction right now. No, I'm great. And I know we were playing a bit phone tag before and trying to make this happen for a long time. I'm very excited and happy that it finally worked out and that we got together now.
Yeah, we're very excited as well. And hey, listen, that little bit of phone tag, it wasn't without reason. You were in playoffs. Very important stuff. And a place that was really far away. I think you mentioned it was like 15-hour trip for Lynchburg.
Way and back with a game in between. So it was a 4.5 ride. And our bus driver, we gave him a good tip, I think, because he made it, I think, in 3.5 the way to the game. So
Oh, man, that's incredible. All right. Well, before we get started, guys, obviously, same old. We're going to get through some housekeeping items first. So tomorrow, we brought this up on social media. We didn't have an episode on Thursday, but we're going to be doing some pregame tomorrow with a correspondent from Neftchi Baku in Azerbaijan. We're going to cover their team, do a little bit of pre-match for that matchup. As always, guys, a HEPA. If you are looking to defend Hellenism, do some fundraising for Greece and the motherland, check out your local chapter, see how you can get involved, see how you can meet other Greeks, and do just fun stuff with Greek people in general. And lastly, thank you to our sponsor, Piraeus International. Piraeus International has been helping Greeks ship to and from the motherland during COVID-19. Shipments to Greece are going out from Baltimore, Maryland every month. Fill any large U-Haul box, 18 by 18 by 24, and send it to our friends in Baltimore, and it'll be shipped to the Port of Piraeus for only $50. Better yet, fill any large wardrobe box and send it for $100. Give our friends a call at 410-675-4696. or send him an email at sales@piraeusintl.com. All right, so just before we get into the interview, we just had a couple of news items. And the first thing, Coach, I wanted to get your opinion on this because there was a huge announcement by FIFA. For those of you that don't know, FIFA has a competition called the Future of Football. It's the Future of Football Cup. It is a youth competition that they do to test out new rules and new things that they are thinking about doing for the professional stage. And they have some big changes that they want to make for international football or international soccer. The first change, they want to reduce the time of the halves. Instead of 45-minute halves, they want to do 2 30-minute halves. They want the clock for the game, instead of the ref keeping time and then adding stoppage time, just stopping the clock anytime the ball goes out of play, anytime there's an injury, so on and so forth. Unlimited substitutions. They want teams to be able to make tactical subs whenever they want. Throw-ins played with feet. So if you've played futsal, it's kind of like that. You're never using your hands in this game. And lastly, instead of a yellow card just being a caution, the yellow card, they want to be a 5-minute suspension. So the player can't enter the field for 5 minutes. So really quickly, Coach, what do you think of these changes? Do you think this will ever make it to the professional stage?
I mean, I feel like we're talking ice hockey here. Like,
yeah, or basketball.
No, I'm a complete traditionalist. I think, and you could see what's behind these ideas. Like having shorter halves basically brings in more games in a week. brings my profit. Is this commercialization is one thing. It's the same with the Nations League and the changes they suggested there. So I'm strictly against. I would really call myself in that sense a traditionalist. Unlimited subs, like you don't have any game flow anymore. This is basically what you see in college soccer here. College soccer is like dub, 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 dub. There's soccer is like water. It's never static. If you see college soccer, and this is what they have, unlimited subs. If you saw the best teams playing in there, this has nothing to do with our sport that we love. It's basically like bringing on guys for 15 minutes. They run until they drop. Then bring on the next guys, and it's subbing. I think it steals a lot from the game, and I'm totally not a friend of that.
Yeah, Lambro.
Yeah, same thought as well. I just I know they've been talking about this thing with the yellow card as well. Like I think the Chiellini tackle in the final is like the best example. It's like it's not a red card, it's a yellow card, but it's like there should be a heavier punishment. I know people have been debating a lot about that, but the whole 30 minutes, unlimited substitutions, how does that work? Can people come back on as well? Is that how that works?
That's the idea.
I don't love that.
Back and forth. I don't love it either. Look, I am probably a traditionalist as well. And I know that Florentino Perez has said that ratings have gone down because the youth aren't interested. Their attention span is more limited, and they're not as interested in football because it takes up more time, and their attention span is like here. And if they're trying to model this after sports, other sports, like more like American sports, it's not like American sports are on the up and up either. They have been on the decline as well for esports. Esports are going up. So I don't think they should be modeling this after any American sport because they're not exactly doing too well either, and viewership has been either stagnant or steadily going down as well. Anyway, I'm going to hope that this never happens, but just some information for everybody. Many of our audience already had a lot to say on social media. We're not huge fans of this idea. The second point of news, guys, after that incident with Galatasaray, it ended up becoming a diplomatic incident, an international incident, where Turkish players, or I should say players from Galatasaray, were not allowed into Greece because they would refuse to do the rapid test. They had done a test prior within, I think, a 36-hour period, which is what the rules are, but the Greeks wanted them to do a COVID test, a rapid test, and they wouldn't do it. Well, guess what? They had 2 players test positive for COVID. And we had a lot of people getting upset with the Greek government saying that they did this on purpose. Well, it looks like they had a reason. They maybe knew something we didn't. So I guess thank you guys for doing your due diligence. And our players didn't catch COVID as a result. So now that that's over with, let's get into it. Let's get into the meat of the podcast, the reason everybody's here. And we're going to start with Coach Philipp. Let's get some background. How did you start with your career in football as a player? When did you start, and where did you start?
My players would probably say he can't remember anymore because he's so old already. I think I was 2.5 or 3 when I first met with the kids, and it was like back in the days, you're meeting with your friends in the neighborhood. We kicked the ball around, and one day, one mother just came and said, your friend, I don't know if it was Christian or whoever, said he's joining a soccer club, and don't you want to come as well? And I remember going there with him, and we trained with much older kids. I must have been 3 or 4, and I remember coming home, and I never wanted to do this again. I just loved playing. I loved being with my friends, and I was in a kind of competitive atmosphere as a very, very young kid. And I remember not liking this at all. And I think I set out for 1 year after this and just played with my friends in the backyard. And then when I was 5, I joined the club that was back in the days feeding into Borussia Dortmund. We didn't have this whole academy system in Germany. This just came after, I think, the big disaster in 2004. For Germany, big disaster. For Greece, I think the biggest moment ever at the Euros. And Dortmund didn't have an academy at the time, so I was playing for TSC Eintracht Dortmund back in the days, and really learned to love the game over there. I had very, very good coaches at a young age, and carried it on from there. Unfortunately, and a bit before the show, Ari and I talked a bit, and we share a bit the same destiny with our knees. So my left knee basically gave up when I was 18. Had 4 surgeries in there, and it was basically the same. Like cartilage damage, all ligaments were torn. And when I was 18, I was basically making a choice. I was telling the doctor, and I remember that my knee was big as a soccer ball, and I was lying in hospital, and I told him it was Wednesday after practice, and I said, "Hey, I have a game on Sunday. This has to be working on Sunday." And the doctor was just looking at me and said, like, if you are able to walk again in your life without pain, if you can ever jog again, you can be thankful. Of course, this took quite a while to sink in. This thought, not a happy year afterwards, a lot of re-education, rehabilitation, rehab?
Yes, that's correct.
Don't mind vocabulary. My players are always making fun because I'm using still some funny words after 2.5 years. And when I was 18, my former club back then offered me to coach a youth team when I was 18, and I already had my first coaching experiences with 15, 16, because our high school coach left in the middle of the season. And I was kept on our high school team, and I basically took over practices. I didn't really have a clue what I was doing, but I think the guys had fun. And when I was 18, I picked it up a bit more, and I did my first coaching license, and I actually trained in under 14. And this is how the whole process started. And initially, I wanted to study sport and sport development and wanted to go into journalism. So basically what you guys are doing, I think it's amazing, by the way. After my knee injury, I ended up studying law and going to law school and becoming a lawyer. So I was actually part-time coach and full-time lawyer afterwards.
It's a fantastic background. Lovely story. Now, so you very young also. You started very young coaching. That's incredible. Now, give us a little bit of an idea. So you started coaching. You were doing this part-time. Now, what brought you to the U.S. for coaching? What brought you to Olympiacos DC?
So, how long is your podcast going? Okay, I think I come with a short version. 2014, when it was basically Germany's best moment in the younger past, when they became world champion, I had another incident with my knee, or this time it was the other one, and I used the time afterwards in the rehab to make my UEFA coaching licenses, and I trained a very high-ranked under-19 team in Germany. And I was basically searching for the next challenge in my life. And 4 years ago, or 3.5 years ago, my life pretty much turned upside down. I reconnected with my former exchange student, and I was a guest in her house in '99 when I was 15 years old. So I was an exchange student from Germany in America. And we reconnected 3.5 years ago after 17 years. There was a little gap in between. We sent handwritten letters. We emailed afterwards. Then Facebook came. So we were always in touch, but it was basically pen pals. And then we reconnected after 17 years, and it basically hit me. So I'm married to my former exchange student today. We have a little son together, and this is why I live in the United States. And I started here. The first year was actually pretty difficult. I felt like a fish out of the water. So I was used to have soccer in my life 5-6 days a week. I was out there nearly every day. I was still playing myself. I mean, in a pretty much amateur league, and that where my knees could still carry me. But I was used to having this pack life, to be with the guys all day, to be with my youth team. And then from 100 to 0, I was in America and I didn't have this surrounding anymore. So I was searching for opportunities. I was reaching out to so many clubs. I tried to understand the system here. I mean, you guys might be a bit more familiar, but when people try to just explain me the pyramid of American soccer, or what this league is, it was a very rough beginning. It was very difficult to get into it. Many teams didn't even answer, and I sent in my credentials. And then over a common friend, I met the former assistant coach of Howard University. And he brought me on there. I spent one season with the Howard Bisons, which was amazing. Many of my players right now at Olympiacos are basically Howard based, and are students at Howard University still. And after that, I just wanted to coach at a higher level. And I ran over the Olympiacos DC website and read about their philosophy. And what was frustrating, I think you already heard it when I talked about college soccer, seeing the level of playing here, seeing the game IQ of some players. You have, in the United States, you have fantastic athletes, like insanely great athletes. But the game IQ was very, very low. Tactically, the level was very low. And I searched really for a challenge and wanted to build that up somewhere. And when I stumbled over the Olympiacos DC website, they basically said, we don't just want sprinters, dribblers, athletic guys. We want the complete package. We want smart players. And this basically talked to me. So I reached out to Harry Karageorge, the president of Olympiacos, and we met. We had a nice lunch. We talked for a long while about soccer. I think our first phone call, when I just wanted to introduce myself very briefly, was going on for 90 minutes afterwards. And we were talking ideas, and it was great. And starting with the youth teams there, we really tried to establish a different style of play. And then I think in August 2020, middle of the pandemic, two of my former college students approached me and said, Coach, we would love to play for you again. How can we make this possible? How can we work? And maybe UPSL could be a possibility, which is 4th tier in America. And I said, yeah, let me get into it. Let me look into it. And I pitched the idea to Harry to have a UPSL, a senior team, because what is also missing in the United States is for normal in Europe, you have your academy teams and they're under 19. And when they're under 19, they go to the seniors. Here, you're basically done. You finished with your under 19, you can go to college or you play in a league somewhere. And this is it. And so I said, if we want to attract like highly qualified players, age 17, 18, and want to give them a perspective, we basically need a semi-professional team on the top of the whole pyramid. And maybe later we can talk about plans for the future, because we would like to even lift this whole project to a complete professional level next year. And this was basically the approach I took with Harry, and Harry was fantastic. We got some good people on. My two captains of the UPSL team were the players that approached me back in the days, and they reached out to everyone. They brought on more players, and then more players were attracted by tryouts. So this whole project basically grew out of nothing. And the initial idea was in August. On December 3rd last year, we were all standing on the training field together and had our first practice together. And it's just crazy thinking back of how fast this all went, and that the first season now is basically done.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I remember when the team was first announced, and then in December, I'm hearing about UPSL. I'm like, oh my God, they got a team together that fast. And then when you were competing, I thought, surely the team had just come together. It's so quick. There's no way, you know what I mean, that a lot can happen in this first season. And much to my surprise, and of course, my happiness, I should say, they did well. Now, we're going to get into that, of course, as well. But now that we're already on the topic of you coaching Olympiacos, give us some of your we use the same thing with Coach Yanni and with Harry Karageorge. Your core tenets, your primary focus as a coach. You know, what are your focuses for your players in general?
So I already said we establish a different style, and it got mixed up a bit. I want to get away from long balls. I want to build up on the ground. I need very, very smart players. I need players that have an insanely good decision making. We always talked about transition periods from box to box. We always wanted to be in the range of like 10 to 12 seconds. And that means when you build up and when you overplay the midfield very quickly without using long balls, the players always have to know like 3 steps in advance where the ball will go, where someone will move. And you need like an immensely good awareness for that. And in my daily training, I basically always implement life kinetics. This is one thing we already talked about as well. I work a lot with their vision, which might be completely strange to an older generation of coaches. Like we're doing some drills on the field where sometimes people walk by and they're looking at us like, are you okay? You're doing good? I say, yeah, we're fine, we're awesome, we're great. But it basically, Johan Cruyff framed it very, very well. They asked him, why are you so quick back in the days? He said, like, I'm not that quick. I'm just running there earlier than anyone else. And this is what I ask from my players. I want them to be 100% aware over 90 minutes, and I want them to see the whole game. And I always tell them, when you're watching soccer, don't follow the ball anymore. Because what I saw when I came here, what was like insane, you see 22 people on the pitch and you see one ball and you see all of their heads just following that one ball. It's very, very rarely that they're checking their shoulders. I told them the top players at top level, they check their shoulders like 4, 5, 6, 7 times before receiving a ball. They're basically, Julian Weigl, who played for Dortmund, who's now at Benfica Lissabon, was always my best example. Because he has brown hair and he had always had a very pale face. So even from far away on the pitch, you could always see like this change when he was always like a chicken and always moved his head all the time. And I basically told my players, see the whole thing and recognize the whole thing at each moment in the game. And I think many of them got a different angle on the whole game and understood it very differently afterwards. And what I said before, we had fantastic athletes. Seeing these fantastic athletes becoming smart soccer players and then seeing this whole thing coming together and having a moving organism on the field where everyone knew, like the right back knew when the ball is at the left winger, he exactly knew what to do. He knew where to move in. He saw how spaces were opening up. Another thing I always tell my players, don't play in spaces that are open, play in spaces that will open up, anticipate that. So, sorry, very long answer. I love my job. I love talking about it. It's basically creating smart players is the biggest goal, and this is basically what we want to do with Olympiacos Piraeus here.
That's great. I have actually a question about the coaching badges. Is this something that you learn through these classes? I think a lot of people hear, oh, a coach is going for his badge. Can you explain what that means? Are these things you're taught through UEFA? Is this things you're taught through clubs? Like, first off, what are the badges and where did this philosophy come from? Did it come from you're working for a club?
Each coach has their own philosophy. Like when you do the UEFA coaching licenses, of course, you will learn about psychology. You will learn the German UEFA licenses go very, very deeply into tactics, which I loved, which is absolutely was my favorite there. You learn about training methods, but for me this came from a completely different side. We had in this coaching licenses we had a guest. And he was the coach of the German track and field team. So he didn't come out of a soccer environment. And he gave us one drill. He had like cones in different colors, and you basically had a row and you always had to jump with your feet to the cones. And then he said, first one, you jump with your foot to the cone and you lift your arm on the opposite side. Then when you go through it again, you do exactly the opposite. But you had to work with your whole body. And the cones had different colors. And the colors afterwards were giving you different tasks. And you had to perform different tasks afterwards according to the color of the cone. And basically, it just worked with your information processing. And it was mind-blowing for me. And I got in touch with that maybe when I was 30. So it's a few years ago now. And I got deeper into this and I adapted this into my practice. And what I have on my Instagram, basically, most of the drills I developed myself afterwards. And you always create your own philosophy, I think, of many things that come together. And the style we are playing with the boys and how we're training, I think it's very unique. And I was lucky to look over the shoulder of other coaches, and I took a lot from that, but I think it's never the same. It's like, and one very important thing is what you can never underestimate, which I completely underestimated when I was a player and not on the coaching side, is Guardiola said it very nicely. He said 70% of the whole job is communication. And having your tactics, teaching your players, bringing them in a certain direction, yes. If your players don't go out there and want to play for you, if they don't feel that, if they don't feel respect and love for their coach, and if they don't want to go out there, you basically have a problem as a coach. And you need to create this atmosphere around them. You need them to bond. It's kind of a brotherhood. It's kind of a family. And when you have this feeling on the team and everything else comes together, then you basically have a successful team.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You brought up a couple really good points, and I want to touch on actually two things before we really get into the life kinetic stuff. And from Karens P82, this is actually one of our friends from the Football Kendron podcast. It's an Armenian football podcast. Key points right there, valuable words. Thank you so much for the comment. But Coach Philipp, so you brought up the 12-second transition. You were discussing getting the ball, moving the ball forward, and getting it into the opposite end of the field in 12 seconds. That is an amazing feat, because I don't think a lot of people that maybe haven't played the game don't realize how difficult that is to get the whole field there and not kick the ball up and have good possession in doing so. We're talking a lot of one touch, a lot of pass and move, requires a lot of coordination. The pros make it look easy, but when you're playing with amateurs and not everybody has the same level of skill, it's very difficult to do, especially in the lower levels. And you brought up another really good point. In the U.S., great athletes here, always has been the case. And it's something that's commented on a lot by European clubs, but the vision is never there, or the vision is lacking in a lot of players. And I remember as a player myself, I never, all the coaches I ever had, most of our practice, I was running all day. It was running. And then the ones that were a little bit more advanced, we were doing some, short-sighted like scrimmaging and like with nuances to that and working with some cones here and there. But when it came to like agility training and really things that made me focus on, we'll say, the thinking aspect of the game, the mentality of the game, the tactics of the game, wasn't until I got involved with a foreign coach, or my coach Yanni. And then that was all parts of the game I didn't even realize, or I didn't even think about beforehand, because that wasn't part of the game that we were taught here. So this was so important for me, for those points that you made. Now, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, which the life kinetics. That is very interesting, and we have gotten some messages in the past about that when we shared the Instagram videos. So give us a little bit more specifics about some of the drills that you do for the life kinetics. I know you said kind of the purpose was working on awareness, the ability to think, in multiple facets, doing one thing while you're also doing something else. Keep your mind constantly moving around. Give us some specifics. What kind of drills do you do specifically with life kinetics? We've seen some where like the player is doing like what do they call those when you're putting your foot on the ball, but then you're we used to call it, I think, like Mexican hat dance back in the day, but then they're juggling at the same time. I forgot what that drill is actually called, but that's what we used to call it back in the day.
To be honest, I have no idea where you are right now, but it sounds great. So I think you saw some of the drills. I give you an example of our daily training, for example. So many teams, many coaches start off their practice with rondos. Rondos,
yes,
every variation. So,
Coach Philipp, real quick, for the listeners that aren't familiar with those, can you explain what a rondo is?
Oh, it's basically few guys standing on the outside, passing a ball, and one in the middle, or two in the middle, or three in the middle try to chase it. And whenever they get it, the person who did the mistake has to go in the middle.
It's like the best defensive drill if you're playing FIFA 21 or Football Manager. You do that drill. It's like the best to boost your defensive stats for the listeners that aren't familiar.
Okay, so that very simply described. So what live kinetics do and what my training does, I try to overload my players in every practice, completely overload them, that basically the game afterwards is a walk in the park for them and is relaxing. What you also train with this is being resistant to stress. And on the example of rondo, so I have players standing on the outside, passing the ball around, and then you can vary it. You say you just take one touch, or you say you just always combine. You take one touch, the next one takes two touches, one touch again, two touches. They are mandatory. So the players already have to observe what they're doing. They need to see who touched it before me. Did he do one or two touches? I have to do the other thing. Plus, if you have one touch, you have to play to a player that is far further out of pressure, that is not close to the player in the middle, because he needs more time on the ball with two touches. So you have to think strategically. Little example. Another thing in rondos, while playing the ball on the ground, I give them a ball in the hand, and they have to pass it on top, so two balls are going in there. The next is, while you have the ball in the hands and the ball on the ground, they get a red cone, they get a blue cone. They have to hand over the red cone whenever they are open, and they can't hold it longer than 4 seconds. They always have to check their shoulders and give the red cone clockwise and the blue cone counterclockwise. So there are two balls going, there are the cones going, and then you afterwards tell them 2 objects can never be at the same player. So still, while they're playing with 1 or 2 touches on the ground, they have to anticipate, when is this cone there, when is this cone closing in, when is the ball over there going. They have to always make themselves available. This is another thing that is very important for me, is communication. So they always got to talk. Whenever they can help out, they're available for one of the objects to take it over. They got to check in, they got to come for it. Very big sickness in American soccer, and I don't want to talk bad about it or too badly about it, but most players, and I always tell my players that on the field, they play a pass and they admire their work, what they just did. They're standing on the field and they're like, oh, wow, that was my pass. And I said, what did you do afterwards playing this pass? You were standing there, you were admiring what you did before. No, you move out of space, you get into the next space, you bind the player, you open up the next space. And this is what I said, 90 minutes awareness, and constantly keep them going. And we're even playing these rondos, I would say sometimes over 20 minutes in a training, and it's draining after a certain time, because you really have to be 100% focused. The next thing we bring in, and I always tell the guys, if you don't learn to play soccer, at least you learn your little multiplication with me. They have to say numbers. So each of their touch on the ground with the ball, the first one that passes it says 3, the next one says 6, the next one says 9, the next one says 12. And the player in the middle that's chasing the ball has one task. He has to chase the ball, plus he can put psychological pressure on them by shouting random numbers. So when they're still going through their numbers, the player in the middle is shouting 16, 14, and you will see that players really having to focus on all of these motorical skills, plus talking, plus thinking and anticipating. The feedback I got from many of my players, I've one player that comes from Texas. He said, after training with you and after going back to Texas and playing with my friends again, he said everything seemed so slow on the field. Like everything seemed like it slowed down. And this is basically a good example of our daily training. there are hundreds of different drills, and I always try to make practice as interesting as possible for my players. But this is just the example how to work with rondos. And it's so much more than just passing a ball around, and you can train so much more in this one moment.
Yeah, they're incredible. I just the few that I was watching, I was astonished, because I know if I had to do those in practice, that would have been very interesting for me. I think one of the first videos I saw, it was you had the player, he had two like small, they look like tennis balls, I think, and they were in his hands, and he was like switching them. He would like throw almost juggling, but like switching hands almost with the balls. So he would like throw both up and then have to catch them in the opposite hands while also passing a ball back and forth.
Yeah.
So that I love that. That seemed really fun.
That is actually one of the very basic drills of live kinetic, but then combined with soccer again. And it's basically triggering the information exchange between your left and your right brain, and is strengthening the bridge in between the two brain hemispheres.
Yeah, I mean, that's just incredible stuff there. I mean, and it definitely has an effect, because I mean, the boys look great on the field. They can see, the vision's very good. They pass and move around. So I definitely think at the very least, they're taking some lessons from the life kinetics training at the very least. Lam, would you have any more questions for the life kinetics?
No, it sounds amazing. I don't know that much about it, but so this really came from a non-football person that you got the life kinetics, you were first introduced that to, or is that something that you also saw in academies in Europe as well? Is that something that is a thing in Europe more so, or not so much?
Words, and I don't know how deep this goes, but Jürgen Klopp at Borussia Dortmund trained with that. I think it was with Felix Neureuter, who is, I hope skiing people won't kill me. I don't even get in the terms what he is, but he was a professional skier.
You've got me.
So. And they invited him to a practice of Borussia Dortmund, and there's a video on YouTube somewhere where Mats Hummels is completely struggling and juggling balls as well, and nearly falling on his nose while just walking. And I know Jürgen Klopp brought this into his practice because his style of football requires the same. His players have to be like 100% aware in every situation, and they play such quick transitions over the field. And I know that the German national team implemented this as well. But I can't tell you in which depth, because depth, my favorite word in English, by the way, depth. My other thing my players love when I say this, play into depth. Because it all happens behind closed doors. So there's just a little advertisement, and there are little videos on YouTube, but you don't know how deep they go into it. But again, most of the program, or nearly all of the program that you see on my Instagram, this is what I designed myself, and I basically made it fitting for soccer, especially the rondos. And I have some great friends in Ulm, in southern Germany. They're called Soccer Kinetics. And I was very happy to be the co-author in their last book. And there I basically described the rondos and described what I just told you guys, and had a little part in their book. And this is something which I haven't come across so far in my career.
Well, now that we've kind of gotten a glimpse of the philosophy, some of your training tactics, now give us, for the academy, because you're not just the coach, obviously, of the UPSL team, you're the technical director of the academy itself. What is your short-term and long-term goals for the academy itself?
So short-term is basically building up elite teams at the youth level and letting them play MLS Next. What I'm very proud of, and what one of my goals is, and I think for a coach, it's always the biggest honor if his players want to become coaches afterwards. And I want to recruit the next coaches for our youth academy out of our UPSL team. And I want basically them to take over responsibility to work with the same mechanisms that we installed in the UPSL team and work at a high level. A long-term goal is basically bringing this UPSL team in Tunisia. And this would be the next step. Like, we're playing 4th tier in America right now. NISA would be 3rd tier, and this is already completely professional. And this is something where I hope that Olympiacos Greece is supporting us. And this will be definitely something for the future, and creating an absolute program of excellence there, and maybe cooperate with the college here as well to have their facilities. And this could also lead to a big play exchange, that Olympiacos sends us players from Greece, from the U19, that play with us, maybe study in the United States. And there is a lot that we're talking about right now, and I'm really, really excited about the things to come.
This is also a question that I asked Harry, but how, like, is that something also that you're considering, how cool it would be to send a kid that you guys have trained off to Greece and see them play at a European club? Is that also a goal that you guys are considering, that one day one of these kids will reach Olympiacos, either the academy or even the professional team one day?
I mean, of course, that should be the goal. I mean, we are a part of the scouting network, and we want to create players of excellence, and this would be the absolute goal, of course. Already of my UPSL team, which I'm very proud of, one of my players signed in Greece in the 2nd division with FC Santorini a week ago. So already these guys are going in other places right now. 4 of my players are currently in Europe trying out for professional teams over there. I sent to my good friend Mark Woller, who's the coach of Holzwickede SC. I'm constantly sending him players over from our team so they could test their abilities in the 4th and 5th division in Europe, in Germany, and go on from there. Because one thing that is also very remarkable, if you ask all of my players, all of these guys, what do you want to do in your life later? And they're all studying, they're all doing their academics, but of course 95% of them saying, I want to be a professional soccer player. And I think we have huge talent here and there. They were not really developed at a younger age, and especially when these kids play college, like, the really smart and good players mostly get overseen because it's all about agility. And the guys who actually would have the game IQ and the ability to go over to Europe, they are not being developed as they should be. And this is another thing we want to lay a big eye on. And of course, like, absolute dream, if you see a player one day in the jersey of Olympiacos FC that came from our DC Academy, that would be the absolute dream. Yes.
We would love that. I would love that 100%, to see the next Peter Philippakos, as it were, the next American or even Greek American kid, whoever it is, that can get over there and play. Now, the next question I had for you is, in terms of tactics. I love tactics as well. It's one of my favorite parts of this game. What is in terms of formation, what do you focus on? We know that the academy in Greece, at least, Nikopolidis had told us they focus a lot on 4-3-3. What do you focus on tactics-wise? Or is it primarily 4-4-2? Do you throw other things in there? Do you make adjustments?
So basically, it's just a lineup. Like, these are numbers. It depends how you play it. And 4-3-3 could also be 4-2-3-1. It is a 4-4-2 when we're defending. It just depends on the position of the ball and at each moment in the game, what the guys are playing, how they're shifting in. So if you want to put it in very simple terms, we started off the season in a 4-3-3. We went back to a 4-2-3-1, which was way more successful, having more stability in the center. And playing against the ball, whenever we're out of possession, I'm defending in a 4-4-2. And that means my 10 is dropping next to the 9. And we always play, which is very, very untypical for an American team, is we're playing a midfield press. And many teams say they're playing a high press here. I wouldn't even call it like this. They're sitting very high on the field, but they're not coordinatedly pressing. And we actually established a very, very well-functioning zone pressing in this season. But we're coming really from a deeper midfield press. Also, since I have I had a very, very fast first line, like my strikers had immense pace. And I always told them, if you're already standing out there, you're robbing yourself your biggest advantage. Like, your advantage is your pace. And this means you got to pull them out, you got to lure them out, and then you got to come with speed behind their lines. So our formation on the field was varying a lot according to the ball position and to the game situation. But in general, to answer your question, 4-2-3-1.
Yeah, well, the reason I asked that is because I was able to watch all of the games except for the very last one, the final.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I noticed that on the, you would have two midfielders sitting deep, and it looked like you were playing almost like a 4-2-4 at times, because your wingers were pressed really high up sometimes with the two forwards, and then you had two midfielders that were covering a lot of space there. And yeah, you were very fortunate. There were a couple of guys that have some incredible pace on your team. And I'm a huge fan of both of your midfielders, by the way. The ones that tend to start in most of the games, I'm a huge fan of both of them. I was an 8 by trade when I played, and so when I love seeing midfielders that especially are pretty good with the ball at their feet.
Yeah, no, the guys are fantastic. They're great. Especially, this is our second captain, Chris McGann, number 19. I don't know if you're talking about him.
Yes.
Yeah, he took a phenomenal development, and at college he wasn't even one of the starting players. He wasn't like really in demand there, and how he developed in the last 8-9 months is breathtaking.
You're joking.
Yeah, this is exactly the reaction I got a few times before. No, he was not like definitely a starter at college, which is like a bad joke. And this is what we talked about before. These players with this high game IQ and with these fantastic abilities, they get overseen in the college system.
Yeah, because he's unfortunately, I think that in some ways we've gotten better in the U.S. about this, but they still value sometimes the more physical player, the more athletic player than say the one that can actually read the game well. And he had over the course of the season some incredible balls, through balls. I mean, just brilliant one touch as well. He was one I loved watching. And then there was one of your center backs as well. I think I couldn't tell if it was 44 or 14 was another one that I thought could play really well out of the back. Was he always a center back, or was he like a midfield player by trade in the beginning?
That's an awesome question, Ari, and a very, very good observation. Number 44 is Julian Chaparino. He basically came out of nowhere. Somewhere in February, he ran on the training field and said, like, could I train with you guys? I said, like, of course. Like the guy, I said, where are you playing? What's your position? He said, oh, I'm a midfielder. I said, no, you're not. I don't think so. And this is maybe one of the biggest jokes internally in this team. Our back four over the whole season consisted out of 2 wingers. Like my outside backs were basically wingers. I did not have I had 1 real outside back out of 5 who played this position the whole season. My center backs, 44 Julian is a midfielder, and 32 Roy is actually a striker. And we looked at them in practice, and in the beginning I still had my assistant coach Dominic, who is greetings, by the way. His birthday was yesterday. He unfortunately moved back to Germany. And Dominic told me in one practice, he said, this guy is a center back. He's immensely good with a ball. He can break lines from the back. And he said, that's not a striker. I said, I totally agree. Same with Julian. And I don't know if he was too happy with me telling him that and putting him there in the beginning. But all these guys established themselves in these positions they were not really used to. And they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, they really did. And that's when I watched them, because I have to say, all the teams that you guys played, there was no other team that you played against, even Lynchburg, when you guys lost to them, no other team had center backs that could play the ball, or at least have both center backs that could play the ball as well as they did. And that's why I was, especially with 44, I was like, this guy, the way he moves the ball, his confidence on the ball, he has to be a midfielder by trade, because you don't see a lot of center backs that are at least that comfortable with the ball at their feet, or even getting forward with the ball. So he's very much, he played like a modern center back that can play with the ball at his feet and quarterback the team, as it were, in possession. Now we got a really good question here from the OLB, our good friends at Shoot the Defense. Apologies if already asked, but how difficult is it to hold on to promising players with MLS and USL clubs and their own scouts searching the region for talent?
Terrible, to be honest. Just in the fall season, the face of the team will change a lot, because a lot of the guys are going back to college.
Mm-hmm.
And the other big part of them is going to Europe, is on a tryout here, on a tryout there. And this is basically the biggest issue we have to fight with right now. And we call it professional development team. And it is a professional development team, which also implies that you have a lot of fluctuation with players. And this is one thing why I want to move up, and I want to go to Nisa and really give those guys an opportunity to play professionally with us as well. Because I mean, I'm from Dortmund, Germany, and you know what Borussia Dortmund is doing every year. They're getting young, super great talents. They're building them up. They become international superstars, and you know what happens? Whoop, they're gone. So I already have to fight with this problem with my home club. I would love to change that with Olympiacos, and it's actually very difficult to keep the talents if you don't offer them this opportunity to play professionally.
And for the listeners that don't understand what NISA is, NISA, guys, it's one of the competing third division leagues in the United States. It's the National Independent Soccer Association. So it's one of there's two of them. It's I think, Philip, correct me if I'm wrong, is USL 2 is the other third division league?
No, it's USL 1. Like USL 2 is our level. This is UPSL level.
Oh, sorry. That's right. So then it's, my mistake. So you have NISA and then USL 1. So that's kind of where they stand, and that would be an incredible feat. But guys, for the audience, as we discussed with Harry Kara George, unfortunately in the US, the advancement from one league to another is not merit based. It is financially based. So it is something that's much more difficult to do because of that. And I guess while we're already on it, Coach, what we've already been talking about the UPSL team as it is. So give us an idea. What were your goals for the season for the UPSL team? Where did you guys think you would do, and what were your expectations?
So we did not officially announce it before, but my dream was basically reaching the playoffs in the first year, which is for a new team that finds together is already a thing. I did not really know the level of the whole league. I watched some games before, but it's always difficult. It's different watching them somewhere on TV than being at the sideline afterwards and seeing the actual game speed. So we didn't have a big idea what we're getting in, but playoffs were basically what we wanted to reach. And then after 4 games, we were standing there with 1 point, and which was pretty frustrating. And I'm very happy the guys picked it up afterwards, and it all came together very, very well after that.
I will say this, though. You might have only come away with 1 point, but it's not like the team was playing poorly. You know what I mean? Some of the in the first couple of games, I think it was the first 3 games, you guys had a couple of breakaways, and whether it was the striker tripping or a bad touch for a finish, it's a little bit unfortunate, but the play was decent. It was good. Some of the end product maybe was a little bit lacking, I'll say, but that continued to develop, and then I'd say it was after, I think, the 3-0 loss to, was it Potomac or Germantown City FC?
Lynchburg. That was the first Lynchburg game.
That was the 3-0 was the first Lynchburg. Okay, yeah. Lynchburg, sorry. And then so after that game, it was like that game, then the next one, then the wins started to come. We started seeing the play in the offensive third of the field was getting much better. There were a lot more opportunities on target, So the play was good, but for a brand new team, the guys had to also get used to each other, playing on the field with each other as well. And you saw that get put together as the season wore on. And I thought that was fantastic. So clearly the team, I would say, if it's hitting where you dreamt of, they met your expectations with what you guys thought you could do. I mean, for me, it was well beyond what I expected. So congratulations. I think that speaks volumes with what you've accomplished.
Thank you.
So now that the season's over, you guys made it to the finals, division finals. Next season, what are the expectations?
Very difficult. I already heard you guys are recruiting for us right now, and everyone who's listening right now, we need new blood in our team. We need young players. A lot of the guys are going back to college. We have a lot of guys who are trying out for other teams. We will still have a very strong core, I think, for next season, but we need new players right now, and we need to develop new players. In November, most of the guys are coming back. So next spring season will be very, very strong again. But for this fall season, I think the development aspect has to be like the first goal, that we develop some players that will help us in spring season. If we make the playoffs again, that would be absolutely fantastic. But I think it's a bit further away than it has been this season. It will be a bit more difficult.
Another question from our friends at Shoot the Defense. Is it a disadvantage being based in an area where football isn't as popular as, say, Texas, where Dortmund and Liverpool both have academies?
I wouldn't say soccer is unpopular in this region. I was actually surprised how many people are following it, how many people are completely invested in it. First coming here, I was really like overrun, and you have so many clubs, you have so many organizations, you have so much passion in this area. Like the DMV area is actually a great place to be if you want to develop something in soccer.
Yeah, actually, I would have pointed out my old club is now Baltimore Bays. They're a Chelsea academy now, or a Chelsea affiliate, I should say.
Yeah, and just locally, like football's it's a bit of an immigrant community as well. So there's like quite a few Europeans, Latin American, South American. So I always felt in the DC area there was a strong, even like following club football in Europe was a big thing. And I actually have a different question, Coach. I asked this to Nikopolidis, who kind of is the academy head, and I wanted to ask you. I essentially asked him, let's say you're a young kid, 18. I said, as a Greek kid, would you go to the States and play college football to develop, or would you stay in Europe? I'll change the framing of that. Like, let's say you have an 18-year-old kid, and he's asking you, I'm trying to take the next step. I want to be a professional footballer. Would you tell him, if you're serious about this, you should just go to Europe. You should skip the college step? Because we spoke to Peter Philippakos, who was the first Greek American to play for Olympiacos, and he said, college football was a waste of my time and maybe even made me worse. I wish I didn't even do it. So what would you say to someone like that? Would you recommend that they play college ball?
I mean, if you want to meet some nice people and if you want to have like a good time, play college soccer. If you want to become pro and work on your career, stay the hell away from college. Yeah. Because right now the environment is not fitting. I would love to return to college one day, and this is one of my goals. I would love to take over a team as a head coach one day, but I'm not very happy with the circumstances right now. And you see a lot of coaches in there that are abusive with their players, that have no idea about any tactics. And when you see college soccer on TV, it's like a constant struggle. It hurts. Like it is a constant pain watching these games. And those kids are, I mean, I think he framed it very well. It basically makes you worse playing at college. If you want to go professional, stay away from it. No.
Yeah. And what's interesting is because Nikopolidis' son plays for Georgetown. I don't know if he told you about, but it's quite a famous case in the US.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Any
so maybe he can come play. Is he going to play for you guys like that? No, I don't know. But yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you watched the final or the other games. We have on the goalkeeper position, we're very well set. We have a fantastic goalkeeper. We had Andreas Tsaousis, who started. No, that's not even true. Cameron started the first game. Our goalkeeper, Cameron Mojadidi, afterwards, he carried us through the whole season. And what is so funny, he goes to George Mason University and would be eligible to play for them. George Mason has no idea what they have because he says, I don't want to play college soccer. And he didn't want to play for college before. I have a very good relationship with the coaches of George Mason, and I suggested them take a look at this guy. And maybe Cameron is coming out there and will play for them, but he would have never been scouted by any college because he's 5'7", which is insane for a goalkeeper, which is, I think, 1 meter 74, 73.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And he's super small. And I told you about my assistant coach, Dominic, before. He was a goalkeeper coach, my friend from Cologne. And after the first practices, I said, isn't he a bit short? And Dominic said, like, hell no, he's fantastic. And he said, in the States and even in Germany, you need to search for a very long time finding a goalkeeper that is this good with his feet. He's an absolutely playing goalkeeper. This sweeper keeper phenomenon. We always had him there. My center backs always said they knew if we have him in the back, we can always play the ball around. We can make the game fast in the build-up. Plus, he can even jump higher than I can stand, maybe. So there's no disadvantage with his size. When Nikopolidis is coming over, I mean, he can definitely bring his son over. I would never say no to that. But we have excellent goalkeepers on our team right now, and I'm very, very happy about that.
I'm so glad you actually brought that up, by the way, only because we actually, when Vaclik signed for Olympiacos, there were people complaining he was too short, and he's 188 centimeters. Almost 6'3", and I brought up to people because I follow statistics with football very closely, and I couldn't find any statistic that proved that one goalkeeper was better than another simply because he was shorter. I mean, look, Iker Casillas is regarded, I brought this up in the last podcast, Iker Casillas is widely regarded as one of the best goalkeepers of all time, a legendary goalkeeper. And he was barely 6 foot. He was 5'11". There's a bunch of goalkeepers. If I take right now the top performing goalkeepers across Europe, actually a lot of them are under 6 feet, or at the very least they're under 185 centimeters. But there's people seem to be looking for that Gigi Buffon, the 6'4", that's 192 centimeters, I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
So they're looking for 190 or more centimeters, and that's the only goalkeeper you can have. So I'm very glad to hear that even though you have a goalkeeper that's a little shorter, he's extremely athletic and a very, very good goalkeeper. And yeah, the goalkeeping for you guys this season was incredible. Some fantastic saves overall. Even though you guys had some of the refs working against you on that last game, what was that deflection off the top bar that they let? For some background for the listeners, we didn't advertise. There was a cup. What was the cup called again? The Americans Cup.
American Cup. But Ari, this is. I have to drink 4 or 5 beers afterwards when we talk about this moment.
So for some background for the audience, Coach Wank sent me a video because we didn't really advertise the cup, even though the boys played in it. We didn't, it wasn't something that was easily available for video to watch, so we didn't advertise it on the podcast. But a goal was allowed to stand that really shouldn't have stood. In the United States, we tend to repurpose American football fields for use in soccer and or football games. So for those that don't know what that is, basically the goal post is a repurposed field goal post as well. So instead of just having the goal be, the two upright basically pillars and the crossbar at the top, there's a second crossbar that's about 1.5 feet, almost 2 feet on top of that. And then another, and that spans across. Technically, when you play in, or at least in every league I ever played in and that I've seen people play in, when you play on a field like that, that second crossbar, if the ball hits the second crossbar, it is supposed to be out and a goal kick. In this case, the ball hit off that second crossbar, kind of bounced back, but then had backspin and then bounced in the goal. And the refs gave that as a goal, even though it was supposed to be ruled as a goal kick. And the players stopped. They kind of, when they saw it bounce down, they were like, oh, okay. It looked like they thought it was a goal kick as well, and it bounced into the goal, and it shouldn't have counted. So that type of travesty, unfortunately, exists. And our refereeing in this country is pretty awful, I'm going to say.
Hey, you can say it. I just wanted to say I don't want to make already friends for next season in the UPSL. So I'm leaning back, and this is completely you, Ari. Go for it.
No, I can tell you firsthand. The officiating in this country is terrible. Terrible. I mean, I have friends that are referees, and let me tell you, when they go to get their licenses for things, I mean, if it's different places you go get the license, it seems like they teach different things because everybody seems to come out with a vastly different interpretation of different rules. So I'm not going to go much more beyond that. But okay, as we begin to
I tell you guys of my favorite moment in a youth game I've ever, this was my favorite reffing moment ever. One of their players was having a throw-in. He threw it in the field, the ball went in the field and had spin and directly went out again 10 yards later. And the referee gave them another throw-in from the point where the ball went out.
Oh my God.
Like, in my next practice, I will teach all the boys just to throw the ball as far as they can, and we basically always have a corner kick afterwards, throwing the ball from there, and you basically advance on the field by that. And that was really one of the moments when
FIFA will use that example to change the rule for sure. They're like, we can't be having these throw-ins anymore.
Oh my God.
My assistant coach asked me back then. He asked, "What did he just do?" And I looked at him and I just sat down on the bench and I didn't speak for the rest of the game anymore. And I went home afterwards. It was insane. But there were more of these moments.
We did get one more question before we begin to wrap up here. Our friends again at Shoot the Defense. Final question: what motivational games do you enjoy using during training sessions? So what are your favorite motivational tactics to get your guys going in practice?
That's a good question, and the answer is none, because what is the best motivation is whenever the guys are competing, and basically in every practice you're competing in all of the drills somehow. Since the guys have such a great atmosphere, and after practice they're going out together, they're going eating together, all of them are already trash talking in practice. It starts with a warm-up. They're like, "Oh, Chris, you lost the ball again, man." It's like they basically hype each other up in every practice, and you don't really have to motivate them. Each and every of our practices, and this is what I'm most proud of, we kind of created a family atmosphere around these players. And at every practice, you see smiling faces. And I say this is the best environment they learn in. So the biggest motivation is that they're having fun. And of course, sometimes I get a bit louder with them, but I want this positive dynamic in every practice. I want the players to come out and know, hey, in an hour there's practice, and already smile and be like, I'm happy. This is my evening. This is what I want to do. So we basically worked on the motivational side every single minute in every practice and also around the team.
Okay, I think I have one last question before wrapping up, Adi, if I can. Other than sending the players highlight tapes of Kostas Fortounis to watch and Olympiacos to watch, no, I'm just joking. Or is there any football league teams that you recommend the players to watch? Be like, okay, follow this team, follow what they do. They run a sound system. Is that a thing?
I mean, I'm a bit biased, to be honest. I, of course, told my players to watch the old games from Borussia Dortmund when Klopp was coaching them, especially season 11 and 12. I loved their transition soccer. I loved their switch off game. I loved the game pace. Still, I'm watching some Liverpool games. I'm a huge, and again, I'm biased, but I'm a huge fan of the German Bundesliga because it's way more tactic based. The Premier League in England is, I think, more physical and a bit faster, has higher pace. But in the Bundesliga, there's like the plan behind it, and the tactical plan is this is basically what I try to teach my players as well, like following these games. And again, don't follow the ball, but see the whole construct on the field. And what is also very interesting about the German league is it's take out Bayern Munich, but if not, like every team can win against every other team. Like it's very outbalanced.
And one final comment: do you watch the MLS at all? What are your thoughts on the football that's played at the professional level here in the United States?
Yeah. No, I'm not watching the MLS.
Fair.
Don't feel bad. I don't watch it either. Are you kidding me?
I don't watch it either.
I tried.
It's sad to say.
I tried to get into it. I was at one DC United game, and I actually met a player of them, and I had no idea who that is. He stood next to me, and I asked him, "Hey, so who are you?" And he said, "I was just playing there down on the field." I was like, "Oh, cool. For which team?" No, I'm really. It's hard to digest. It's basically college soccer and MLS are very hard to digest.
Yeah, I find the same thing.
Yeah. It's bad. It's bad. I can't. Once in a while I'll try to like watch because we now, as we've started the podcast, have some colleagues that watch and have players that they tell us that are pretty good that we should check out, and it's just very tough. I can never sit through a whole game. It's a lot of it's extremely ugly. It also could just be me being a little bit of an elitist, but so be it. Anyway, now that we're getting ready to close up, Philipp, it's at this time of the podcast we give our guests one last chance to kind of do a final message for the audience. Tell them where to follow you, where they can check out any other projects you're doing as well. And also one last question, if you're allowed to answer it, the player that you said is going to be playing in second division Greece, can you tell us who it is so we can follow him next season?
If I tell you his name is Nick Andriacci. So might be difficult to get this from the hearing. Maybe you write it down on your side. He was a George Mason player before, and also a good example for our shifting on positions. Nick was a midfielder, and he came to me as a midfielder. I made a center back out of him, and he applied for professional teams as a center back right now. And I said he was an average midfielder. He's a fantastic center back, and I can give you Nick's Instagram. Or maybe
Lovely.
You can like put it on your side. Same for my project. I have an Instagram page, which is called Coach_Philipp Wank, Philipp.Wank, with my name. Maybe you can put it on your side if your listeners are interested in live kinetics, because there's tons of drills on there as well, and especially drills I did with my Olympiacos players. And yeah, last message, we will be broadcasting our games again on, I think now it's 11 Sports. It was my Cujo before.
Yes.
And what I would love if we create, since COVID is like hopefully running out and everything is getting better, opening up, I would love to really create an atmosphere in the stadium next season. So we will most probably still play our games at Annandale High School on Saturday, our home games. And it would be great if we have a bigger audience and if people could attend. We have free admission. Donations are welcome, but everything else is free. Come by, bring your family, have a great day over there, cheer on Olympiacos locally, and we would be very, very happy about that.
I know I personally will be going.
I know Adi's going to be going. If I was still in the area, I would definitely be going, but I would need to ask the high school if flares are allowed, because I'm a bit crazy, as they say.
No, that's absolutely welcome. Like we need
okay.
On the
Oh, it'll be in Greek since we're an Olympiacos team, but the other team will be having it from me and Peter, maybe if Peter comes in as well.
I love
That's
it. I
awesome.
love it. Yeah, I'll definitely go on there in IG Live myself. Thank you again for joining us, Coach Philipp. This was a fantastic talk. Great show today. And guys, thank you for listening, especially if you made it this far. Lovely interview, and we wish the UPSL team, Olympiacos DC, the best moving forward. We're going to cover them a lot more closely next season. Hopefully I'll be able to make it to some games, do some IG live so you guys can follow along. But we'll be constantly updating with all of that content. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us. The audience is growing in a big way, and we're getting noticed. The club is getting noticed internationally. So continue to help us do that and continue to give support to Olympiacos DC Academy, because this is the future of Olympiacos. And we already have players from the academy that are moving all over the place. So great signs here. And we will love to do this again in the future. Take care, everybody. This is the Gate 7 International Podcast.
You just listened to an episode of the Gate 7 International Podcast, a podcast connecting Olympiacos fans from Brussels to Tokyo, from Toronto to Geneva. We are 4 Olympiacos fans from every corner of the world, bringing you news and interviews of the team you love in English. With new episodes twice a week, you will never miss out on the latest updates and stories of the team you love. If you liked what you heard, make sure to follow us on social media at Gate7INTL, give us a subscribe on YouTube, or even leave a review on all our podcast channels. Until next time, this is our team, our city, and our story. Θρύλος είσαι. Στο μυαλό κάτι μαγικό.